Is there exactly who takes care of Power School? Yeah, so she was trying to get a hold of him this morning as well. I said, we have a little bit of time, we're not on the agenda right first thing, so.
Wow. So I'm trying to stream on this.
And it's not letting you.
I think it's saying that we don't have enough
Bandwidth?
bit rate coming in. It's saying we are live. Ah,
I found my package yesterday.
Where was it?
Elmer Post Office, and I marched right in there and got it. Well, it's funny because I went downstairs to the house and I was like, hey, I saw Rich. He looked at me about 10 heads because, I'm asking about mail.
have an agenda and a printout of our slideshow for today. Help yourself, we do have coffee and donuts. Okay, so feel free to help yourself. We didn't know how many subs to expect. We asked all of our new subs to come in first, and then we have our returning subs coming in a little while. That way we can just focus and spend some time working with the new subs just so they got a little more attention. So, again, we didn't know how many to expect, but what we would like to do first, since we have 3 of you, we're actually going to do, the plan was to do a little icebreaker activity, have everybody get into groups, talk about if they've subbed before, some of their experiences, if they haven't subbed before, maybe some of their concerns, things that they might be worried about, fears, I guess you would call it. So since we only have 3, I guess if you guys want to kind of huddle up real quick for maybe 3 to 5 minutes, talk about some of your experiences if you have subbed before, and then we'll go from there. Okay, if you guys don't mind. Thank you.
That's all right. I just second chance that I do the same thing.
First off, allow me to apologize. Okay, my name is Mr. Senior. I am the assistant principal at the high school. Okay, I should have started off with that. My apologies. But again, this is somewhat informal. But first, I guess let's start with, since there's only 3 of us, have you guys introduce yourselves, and then we'll go from there. So, start up front here.
Okay, I'm Beverly Parks. Nicole Fisher. Fran Schmidt.
Good. Okay, and so you guys are all new to subbing at Woodstown, correct? Somewhat new. Well, we appreciate you guys coming in this morning. So, you guys had an opportunity to sit down. Has anybody subbed before? Okay. All right. So, were you guys able to kind of share some experiences that you guys may have had, some good experiences, or maybe some not so good experiences? Any that you would care to share?
I haven't had any bad experience.
Okay, well, that's good.
Well, that's great.
Let's hope that continues. So how about a good experience? Can you give us a good experience?
I basically had little kids, and I love when they come up and hug you and they enjoy, you being there for the day.
Yeah. Okay. Nicole, any experiences you care to share? Positive or negative? No?
She's not going to say she has kids in both schools.
Ms. Sparks?
Yeah, I really have only done one day at the Schumacher School, but it was a floating day, so it was really good to have a chance to maneuver the building and get to know some of the teachers, and that worked out for me.
Good. Good. And let me start off by saying, one of the things that you guys are going to hear a lot today is how important of a role you guys play in our district. Unfortunately, teachers get sick or their kids get sick and they aren't able to make it into the day, and we are always in need of somebody to be able to fill those slots, and that's where you guys come into play. You guys help make sure that our day-to-day operations continue to run smoothly because you guys are able to fill those gaps for us. So again, understand how important it is for you guys to be part of our team. So, okay. All right. So what I would like to do now, we're going to kind of do a little bit around the room here. Everybody introduce themselves, and then we're going to move on to the rest of our presentation. So this way.
Oh, I'm next.
Well, introduce.
Oh, I'm Allison Castellano. I'm the principal of the middle school.
Scott Hoops, principal of the high school.
Diane Chaffee, principal of ECLC and Mary Schmidt.
Jen Hillebrand, and I'm the Dean of Students at Shoemaker. And I'm the Dean of Students here at ECLC, Christy Parker.
All right, and some other important faces that you guys should know. The ladies are there standing by the donuts.
These are the people that you'll see when you come into the buildings, the people that you'll go to get your assignments and any other information. So for the middle school, Kelly Whitling is the secretary of the meeting like that. So she will be there to greet you and let you know what you're doing that day.
For the high school, we have Suzanne Keller, and she will be someone who is, again, a graduate person if you're heading to the high school, so you'll see Suzanne when you come in the morning first thing.
And Mrs. Sarah Mary Shoemaker, she's your gal when you come in the morning. And at ECLC, we have Cheryl Maganelli. She's not here today, but she's the secretary here.
So again, these ladies are your go-tos. If you have a question, worried that maybe there's a fire drill or something that day, they will help you with whatever you need. Okay, if for some reason you're missing copies, again, these are the ladies that will help you out. Whatever you need. Okay?
Is there anything that any of you want to add, kind of from your perspective with substitutes that we should know?
Just when you come in the morning, make sure you sign in, and then always check with me with your schedule when you think you might be coming in for so-and-so. Sometimes we have to make some changes, and we can do it all that. We try not to sometimes.
Same situation for Shoemaker School. We have times when something needs to be pulled for another teacher. Just try to be as flexible. We try not to pull you, but, yeah. I'll reiterate that. But once in the high school, we usually have to pull. Not always, of course, but when it gets busy, people certainly just, and it's just a matter of flexibility. We appreciate that very much.
Okay, so at this point, we are going to allow the building principals to talk a little bit more specifically about their individual buildings. I'm not sure which buildings each of you plan on subbing in, though some prefer to be in certain buildings rather than others. But again, to give you an opportunity to hear from them what their expectations are, some of the day-to-day procedures for each of the buildings, just so you know what to expect from you guys tonight. Okay? So I'm going to pass it off to them.
Thank you, Mr. Senior. And yes, we certainly want to echo how important your role is for sure in the district. The educational experience continues for our kids, and I think the teachers do an excellent job of leading their own plans for you. So just trying to implement them as best we can. If you have questions, every grade level has a team leader at the ECLC and at Mary Shoemaker. So if you ever need questions and we're not right there available, they are very helpful as well. But I do have a story of my own. When we talked about planning this exercise, I just had a flashback about horrific experiences in school. Substituting, I remember my first day substituting. I was nervous. I got sick in the morning. I was like, oh my goodness, I was only 2 years out of school because it is so important and you want to make sure everything goes well. But I was subbing at the high school and I was in the hall, and at the time they had high school monitors. Mr. Gooseby was his name. And he stopped me for a hall pass and I said, I don't have one. I'm a substitute. And he asked me again. I said, I don't have one, honest, Mr. Gooseby. I come from a larger family. So long story short, I was written up and I went to the principal's office. And my younger sister June got sent down to the office for a reprimand for not being, where she needed to be, but it was really me. And I was my second year out of college, so it was that spring semester. So I was very new to the whole experience, but that was something that was very funny. Mr. Gooseby didn't believe me, so I don't know. Okay, so speaking of substituting in and out of ECLC and Mary Shoemaker, some of the things are very similar. ASOP is our reporting system. I'm sure Mrs. Rose, or if you need assistance with that, has went through that process where you receive information on that. We will try and do a better job at both schools talking to our staff about leaving you notes about things, about parking lot assignments, if there's a special activity that day, if there's a change in schedule, because it does throw substitutes off sometimes when they come in and they don't realize, there might be a field trip or a special event planned, or a spirit day, you can wear jeans that day, now you're in a dress and everybody else is in jeans. So we will make sure that's on our agendas for opening day to really reiterate that, as many notes as they can put in there for you, the better. Here at ECLC, there was not a parking assignment, just feel free to park wherever you need to. At Mary Shoemaker, we try and encourage you to follow the same parking number where the teachers are, just because of the lack of parking. But when in doubt, if you're struggling for a parking spot, just park out front, at the Mary Shoemaker school. As far as lunches, and knowing when to eat, where to eat, all those things, a lot of people do pack for lunch, but we do get questions sometimes about, can I buy lunch? Do I have to order in the morning? No, you do not. You can just simply order right in the cafeteria at that time, if you need to purchase lunch, when the kids are eating. I know that sometimes comes up as well. The biggest thing at the elementary level is you really never leave your students. You're always escorting them to no matter where you go. I know Dr. and Ms. Pesano will talk about that in their buildings, and it is different, but you're pretty much with them all the time except for your lunch period. And you drop them off and pick them up at every change of the day, and you do have a prep period each day as well. If you're subbing for a para or a secretary role, you will follow the plans of whatever that person left for you, and of course that's a bit different. But pretty much you are just responsible for their safety, and that's the primary responsibility of the lower levels. And then the instructional components, you will have lots of support, from your colleagues, in the hall or right around there. But just that's the biggest thing. When people substitute at the upper level, they kind of forget when they come down, oh, I can't just drop them off and, come back to the class. So everything, is escorting the children. As far as the plans, the elementary teachers, and ladies, feel free to chime in if you want to, they are very thorough. They write everything down about, what time you need to do certain things. Don't feel obligated if you can't stick exactly to that plan. They're just grateful that you're there and trying to follow through as best you can on the plans. We certainly do not expect that either, but there is a lot of thought that goes into them, and we try and make them as user-friendly for you. We don't expect you to have to integrate something or implement something that, might require, many steps or do some sort of major assessment. We would not, have you do that. So that was another kind of major thing. Those were some of the points just at both of the schools. You met the secretaries. Those are a few questions we often get throughout the rest of the day today. You'll go through emergency procedures and those kinds of things, so I don't want to repeat things that are already said. But I thought the three of us here, thinking about the elementary level, if you wanted to ask us a few questions about procedural things or things that you have experienced elsewhere and you're not sure about or you have a question about.
The only thing I had, I know you said about parking, how do we know who's parking, how we're supposed to know?
In that system, ASAP, when you take the assignment, that's where I'm referencing that the teachers are to have notes in there about my parking spot is.
Oh,
So when you look on the screen all the way to the right, there's notes to substitute, there's notes to administration. So if you click on your notes to substitute, it will tell you those things. It's Spirit Day today, wear your jeans in orange and blue, it's a field trip. We want to do a better job of reminding our staff, and then, if we don't see that in there, we'll try and this year, it's goal of mine, to go say, oh, don't forget, please please go to ASAP now while you're thinking, I'll put those few, notes in there. If you're substituting for a part-time staff member, the ASAP hours that are listed might not always be accurate. You have to really look and click on that, and they have notes in there. So we have chief people at both of our buildings. Some of them may travel from one building to the other. Those are the kinds of things I want them to really put in there, so you're well aware of the assignment you're taking, so there aren't any surprises for you. So again, we'll make sure we go over that opening day. I'm going to take a few minutes on in-service to go in their system, get those good notes in there for you, so that will be helpful.
Yeah, those shared staffing positions are something that's important for
Right.
The teachers to make notes in there too. And if you're at ECLC, because we're small, we have shared staff with Shoemaker and the middle school. So, if you're taking one of those assignments, definitely protect those notes.
Any other question you think of, or if you've experienced something and you're not sure about, for the younger children? You will have a duty probably from time to time. It might be recess duty, it might be lunch duty. It all depends on the assignment you pick up. And we are hands-on, so we're helping students open lunches, help assisting them with, throwing their trash out, supporting them out in the playground, and leading an activity. So it all really depends on what you sign up for. Even if it's for, let's say, a second grade teacher, she or he may have duty first thing in the morning, maybe, and you're supervising a game of knockout or something. So again, as many notes as you can get them to put in there, that will be better for you all, for sure.
And if there's an allergy or any notes, like medical notes or anything like that?
That wouldn't be an ASAP, but that would be in the plan that the teacher leaves for you, yes, for sure. Anything else in the elementary level? Again, questions will be here, of course, all morning to answer whatever you need to. I think you're up, Mrs. Castellano, right?
Right, middle school, everybody's favorite. So I don't know if any of you are interested in subbing in the middle school here, or have subbed at the middle school level, but there are definitely some differences between elementary and middle school. Mainly just the age of the kids and where they are developmentally. So they can certainly be challenging on some days, but there's a lot of reward with working with middle school kids too, I think. So I hope to see you in the building, because I do think that it can be a great experience. Just so you know, our sign-in at the middle school is at 7:25. As far as parking goes for the middle school and the high school, you would either park across the street in the board office and walk over, or if the teacher puts their parking spot in ASAP, then you can park in their spot. Some of them don't have parking spots right now because of construction, so they might be having student parking, which is also an option too, which is out by the football field, the parking lot, kind of next to Shoemaker behind high school. So when they can, they will put the parking assignment into ASAP, otherwise you would park at the board office or in student parking. Okay? As far as procedures and your daily assignment, what Ms. Chaffee explained is very similar. There may be differences when you get to school from what you thought your assignment was going to be. So a good rule of thumb, I always like to say, you know, if you want to pack a change clothes, a pair of sneakers, and you should end up getting pulled for a PE teacher or something like that, it's not a bad idea. But we also are going to make sure that we're using that notes section in ASOP to give you as much information, at least from the sub you're picking up, or the teacher you're picking up for, as much information as possible for your daily assignment. And again, if we're having an assembly that day, if it's a jeans day, something like that, we do want to make sure that that's communicated to you. As far as our daily schedule, very similar. You may have a lunch duty when you're there, and then you would have lunch at a different time. You may or may not have the teachers prep that day, depending upon what we need for coverages. And in most cases, our teachers co-teach, so you will be working with another teacher, whether it be the whole day or part of the day, depending on who you're picking up for, which is really nice for you because then you get a lot of extra support with that. Let's see, what else? As far as the kids themselves, the more positive you can be with them, the better, the better the experience is going to be. It's not to say there won't be things that come up, but you would contact the office and we would handle those things as they arise. The teachers are pretty good at leaving pretty thorough plans. They may not be as thorough as you might find at the elementary level. So anytime you have a question, just contact us. Just let us know, call us in the office, talk to one of your teachers. We have a team leader for every grade level. 6th, 7th, and 8th, and they are always very helpful for the substitutes. I usually let them know we have a substitute. It's their first time here. Check in with them, support them, and you will find that they are very supportive. Nothing else I can really think of. Anybody have any questions about the middle school in particular? Like I said, a lot of it is the same from building to building. It's just it's going to be a different experience every day that you're here because they're kids. So. And then we just handle anything that comes up as it comes up. Am I missing anything? No? I don't have any other administrators in my building. It's just me. So I'm just asking them if there's anything else they know. Okay. Well, I hope to see you there. Welcome.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Once again, I am Dr. Hoops, the high school principal. How many of you are thinking about substituting at the high school? Right, I'm done. That's what I got last year as well. All right, a couple of things that are important. I apologize if I am redundant in terms of covering information, but each building is a little bit different in terms of what our requirements are. So for the high school, the most important thing when you pull in the morning is parking. Parking is crucial. There isn't any. That's why it's crucial. The spaces we have are assigned to teachers, so if you park in a space that's assigned to someone, it starts a domino effect, and that's problematic. The teacher may let you know if you're subbing for someone, maybe for a third or fourth time, you can say to them, hey, or you're not going to be in the building, would you mind if I have your spot? Yes, I'm spot number 74, and then you pull in the morning and you park in spot 74. Sometimes I believe it's listed in ASOP, their parking space, so that if you wanted to park there, you can do that. But if you pull in, the spot's not available, you park across the street at the board office or in student parking. Walk a little bit. Across the street is probably the best place as long as there's space over there. Sometimes that lot gets filled up as well. As my secretary mentioned, when you first get in, after you find that all-important parking spot, you come in the morning and check in with Suzanne. Suzanne will greet you in the main office, she'll have a schedule for you, and she'll give you some other information when you check in the morning. She will be able to tell you whether we're having a fire drill or a lockdown drill. Try to give you as much information as possible to make the day go as smoothly as possible for you. We ask you to arrive by 7:25. There's a sign-in sheet on the counter, and what we ask our substitutes to do is if you're subbing for Mrs. Mitchell, you sign in by her name, because at the end of that 7:25 time period, we look at the sign-in sheet, we can tell who's there and who's not. So just sign in, and Suzanne again will give you your information. It's really critical for us, and this happens, and if the other two principals haven't spoken to this, I think it's really important. If you sign up for a job, please don't cancel out at the last minute. It really hamstrings us, and what ends up happening is we don't have someone for you then. If something happens and you can't come in, and you know that's going to happen, we would just appreciate a phone call telling us, hey, I'm not going to be able to come in tomorrow, and we will do our best to try and find someone to replace you. But those last-minute cancellations, They really do kill us. So please, if you can, don't cancel out on those jobs at the last minute. If you have a prep period in your schedule, and every teacher does, Suzanne may say to you, I need you to cover for us today. We try to avoid it when we can, but normally what happens on days when we're short substitutes is we're going to probably take your prep period and have you cover another teacher's class. So don't fret too much over that. Just know that it's an expectation, and we'll do our best to work with you on that. All right, implement the lesson plans accordingly. That obviously is the reason you're there. The most important part is the teacher will have lesson plans for you. If by chance you show up and there are no lesson plans, they're not in the mailbox, they're not on the teacher's desk, you're going to call Suzanne or myself, and we will hustle around and try and find something for you. And until that point happens where we get you the lesson plan, you can tell the kids to sit quietly and use it as a study hall at that point. But we'll get that information for you as quickly as possible. But the teacher should leave lesson plans for you. We'd ask you to implement those lesson plans accordingly. Take attendance every period. It would be nice if we had technology for you, or you could grab a computer and you could take attendance on PowerSchool. But most of the substitutes, and Carlisle will be talking about this, most of the substitutes take attendance on their phone. You just log in and take it on the phone. It makes it very simple for them to do that. If by chance you can't do that, write it on a piece of paper, take everybody's name down, attendance, and send it down to the main office. Dawn Clark is the person who works in the main office, and then she'll put it in manually for you. Again, if you're having a problem, you can always call Suzanne, who will help you get through that as well. But we ask you to take attendance every period. If you're not familiar with the building, which I know you're not going to be, you're also going to be provided with a map, and you have that information. And again, you can always ask one of the kids, where is room 105? Where is room 5? They'll help you out, and they'll guide you as well. At the end of the day, you get to fill out a substitute evaluation form as well. So maybe you had a class that you thought was really a tough group, and maybe you had a student or two that you want to note for the teacher that maybe the teacher can talk to them tomorrow. I get a copy of all those sub-reports, and I will read through them. So if there's an issue, and it wasn't maybe over the top, you might just want to make a note for the teacher. But at the end of the day, you hand that substitute evaluation form to me, great class, no problems, implemented lesson plans, and you hand that in to Suzanne at the end of the day, so that again, the teacher, when the teacher gets back, knows that things went well or that things were problematic, and so he or she will address the class. All right, all reports are read. When I get those, we keep that communication in a file. The other part is, I know that, has everybody done their GCN training? Okay. Supervise, 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 supervise. Key. All right, I'll give you a little example of something that happened last year. Someone, and again, because of technology, and we all know this, there was a substitute that wasn't doing what they were supposed to do, and one of the kids took a photo of that. Someone took a picture of it. I don't know if it was a kid or someone else, and they sent it to me. The person wasn't supervising appropriately. The technology is there, and you have to understand that kids are going to use that, so you always have to be on your A game. So supervision is key. You don't want to walk out in the hallway with a classroom full of kids, or go to the bathroom and leave the kids unattended. I've had that happen. If you can't see the kids, you can't supervise. Right? And those two things are critical: implementing lesson plans and supervising students. I would say they're the two biggest things that we need our substitutes to do. Right, one other thing we do in the high school sometimes, and we got away from it, but every once in a while, if we are short 9 substitutes for the day, we do something we call large group instruction. It's a lot of fun. Which means everybody heads down to the cafeteria. We have individual classroom teachers. We have little posts with signs, and the teachers' names are on those signs, and then we will situate classes accordingly in the cafeteria. That means that we'll have all hands on deck. We'll send all of our substitutes down there. The study hall teacher will be there. That means we just don't have enough teachers to cover the classes for the kids that we have. So everybody heads down to the cafeteria. The assignments will be down there. Usually myself and Mr. Senior will be down there to help out, pitch in. But again, that supervision becomes really critical at that point when you're down in large group instruction. We didn't have to do it too many times last year, maybe once or twice. All right, Mrs. Keller is going to let you know if you want to touch base with her before you leave. That's really important. Let's say you have a 9th period prep and you think, well, you know what, I'm going to shoot out early. It's really critical to check in with Suzanne to make sure that there are no needs that she has. And again, we'll probably have you in the office working an office duty. We'll find other things for you to do. So before you leave at the end of the day, just check in with Suzanne and make sure that she's covered. Fire drill attendance and line up again when that fire alarm goes off. And if you're not familiar with it at that point in time, the kids will be a great resource for you. But we exit right out of the front of the building, right onto the front lawn. Mr. Senior has them set up now by rooms in order, and the kids will usually know where they are to go. And the only thing you need to do is take attendance. Myself, Mr. Senior, will be out there and we'll collect those slips just in case something comes up. We do have the fire department come in from time to time, and they may steal a kid or they may block a stairwell. Keep everybody on their toes, and it's important for us to make sure, as administrators, we know who's missing. And again, that's critical for you as well. But that's a fire drill piece. The other process for a lockdown drill, and I know Mr. Snyder will cover a lot of this, but Suzanne will let you know again in the morning if we're doing a practice drill. But if I come on the PA or anyone comes on the PA and says we are on a lockdown drill, it's lights off, kids off to the side, door closed and locked, and you just wait for further instructions over the PA. But you're just going to get a quick blip. We're in the lockdown drill. At this point in time, wait further instructions. That's really all you're going to hear. The kids know what to do if you don't know what to do, and they will guide you through that. But again, critical that they remain quiet, off to the side, lights off, and just wait for those instructions to come from either me or whoever else might go on the PA. Right? If your door isn't locked, then you need to grab your kids and go to the classroom next door. And our staff knows that if there's a problem, they're going to help you out. Right? And if you have bus duty, we have teachers who rotate through bus duty, but if your teacher has bus duty that day, we would expect you to be out there helping us monitor the kids getting on the buses at the end of the school day. So just make note of that as well. I think that covers general parameters for the high school. If you walk away with anything, just remember Suzanne's name. If you can do that, you're going to be fine. We'll guide you through the rest of it. So maybe now, let me ask the question, now how many of you want to substitute? Did they change anybody's mind?
Doesn't sound horrible.
That is a ringing endorsement. It doesn't sound horrible. Thank you.
I just want to add one thing too, just something that I thought about when Dr. Bruce was talking about some experiences we've had with substitutes in the past. One thing to remember is the importance of confidentiality, especially when you're talking about kids. If you're, I don't know how many you live in this community, but if you're out in the community and you were in the school that day and you've had an experience with a child, to remember that it's confidential, and you can't be out in the community mentioning these kids' names and talking about how horrible they were, and or anything that may have happened, even if it's an injury or something like that. Because some students, maybe special education, have an IEP. I mean, there are a lot of different pieces that go along with it. So just make sure you're maintaining confidentiality at all times in the building and outside when you're in the community.
All right, does anybody have questions for me that I can answer? Yeah, okay, great. Back over to Mr. Senior.
Before I pass it off to Mr. Adams here, he's going to go through some of the technology pieces with you guys. I just wanted to remind you guys, the substitute manual is online on our school's website. So if you go to the school's website, you go up to the top right corner and it'll say sign in. You click that button. The username is subs, S-U-B-S. The password is Woodstown, and then you'll be able to access the entire substitute manual. That has a lot of the information that is being discussed and explained today. So again, that's just another resource for you if you would like to peruse that at your leisure. Okay? All right, so I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Adams here. He's our Chief Technology Officer. He's going to go through some of the technology pieces with you guys.
Hello. As Richard said, my name is Carl, Chief Technology Officer here. Also, I want to introduce Tiffany Roback, who is our technology technician here. So usually when you have those technology questions, these are the two people you will be referring to. So the first thing I want to get a chance to do is to actually show you my phone. One of the first things I want to introduce you to is how to get in contact with us. Usually that's the hardest thing. You're in the classroom with a bunch of kids and there's a technology question. So I want to just make sure you know where you can find us in a quick pinch other than, a quick phone call. But our website, as soon as it's hooked up there, I'll show you where. Yes.
Yes, 1 second, please. There we
Can you pull up the district website? Just show them where the TSR form is.
go. Sure.
So on our district website here, there's a little technology tab, and under the technology tab, it has our TSR form, which is our tech request form. If you are in the middle of something and you just need a quick help, it's a quick Google form, fill that out. It sends an alert out to us, and we can help you with your issues as quickly as we can. I think that's the first line of communication if you're in the pinch. Easy access from your phone or the computer in the room. Fill that out, and we'll get right to us, okay? Any questions about that? Great, okay. So as a lot of those principals were telling you, ASOP is one of the things we will be logging into. We wanted to give you a live version, but unfortunately we're having some technical issues. So we have a little video here, which is the substitute training for the ASOP. And we're just going to look through that. It's a quick little video, but it shows you all the procedures, what the screen will look like, so you can kind of see what's coming up on the screen there, and the things you'll see in that website.
Hello, and welcome to the ASOP Substitute Web Basic Training video. My name is Tom, and today we'll be discussing how to proactively fill your schedule, how to manage a few of your preferences, and finally, how to find out about those available jobs and accepting those assignments. To begin, you're going to log in. Using any web browser, you can use Internet Explorer, Firefox, or even Safari. But in the URL, you're going to type in www.frontlinek12.com/ASOP. Once you log in, at the top of the screen, you'll see two bars. One says ID. Here's the number that you'll log in, which will be your phone number, and then a 4 or 5-digit PIN number. Once you have typed that in, just simply click Login, and ASOP will launch you to your page. If you happen to forget your login, ASOP will kindly remind you of your PIN number just by following this link here. So I'll go ahead and log in, and let's dive right into your room. Once you log in, you may see an important notification. In ASOP, we call these web alerts. Now these web alerts are important messages from your district. So once you have read this web alert, simply click Dismiss and enter into your website. At the very top, you will see your name, available jobs, notifications or web alerts, questions, and logging out. You will also see a number of tabs located here. This is the Homepage tab, so that wherever you are in ASOP, you click this Homepage and it'll bring you right back from the start. You also have available jobs, history, feedback, preferences, Veritime, which your district may be using, and finally, the Help tab, where you can find all your training and reference materials. We will be covering some of these tabs in this training, and the rest of these tabs in our advanced web training video. Now let's look into your calendar. So the great thing with ASOP is that you can proactively search for jobs and accept them, as well as plan out any other events that you may have. Here in July, I have a number of jobs available for me, and ones that I have already accepted in August and throughout the rest of the year. You can always look at an available job just by clicking on one of these dates here. So it is color coordinated. Green means those are available jobs. I can view those assignments and accept or reject them. ASOP will also keep track of your scheduled jobs. Those will be listed in blue. They will also show you those assignments. Let's jump down to these next tabs here. available jobs, scheduled jobs, past jobs, and non-work days. So looking in available jobs, you will see the employee's name, the date of your assignment, the time that you're responsible to show up at the main office. It is a full day assignment at Dell Middle School. From this point, you can accept or reject this assignment. If you do not know where this location is, there's a nice little user-friendly map icon that you can click and it will drive you to Google Maps and it will direct you how to get to this location. Now, the moment that you've all been waiting for, let's go ahead and accept this job. Simply click accept, and ASOP will issue you a confirmation number.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there because I don't want you to go to sleep listening to this. The main thing I really want you to take away from that is the logging in process. If you don't know your PIN, it will generate one for you, send it to your email. The main thing I think in our district, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure is the main thing for you is the web alerts, things like that, that will give you your assignments, your information. Those are the key things to take away. We'll also have this link available to principals if you really want to go through a man speaking to you in a monotone voice. You can. So that's pretty much ASOP in the real quick nutshell.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Joyce, did you guys speak to Joyce already when you came in, when you handed in your paperwork or in the district office? Joyce Rose takes care of most of ASOP right now. So if you don't have a login, 9 times out of 10 it's your cell phone number or home number, wherever you're most likely to reach is your login name. When Carlisle said the auto-generated passcode, sometimes it does go to your email, but she may have given you one. So if you're unsure about that, you can contact us or her, and we can log in and take a look for you. The web alerts probably will be what you'll be looking for, but again, as Dr. Luce mentioned, we'll put as much information in there as possible. Sometimes if there's an inclement weather message or, if there's something available to the substitutes, that's most likely where you'll find it unless it's going to be class related.
Right.
Then that's when you'll find it in your assignment. I've used ASAP on a substitute level.
Any questions there? Pretty straightforward, right? All right, so the other lovely thing which you'll use the most, and as Doc mentioned, Power School. So right now, as you log into Power School for your attendance, things like that, as we mentioned, most of the time we're using the phones. As right now, as technology, we are working on a solution for substitutes to have a device in the classroom so they don't have to use their phone if they don't need to. So we're working towards that now. Right now, we're having a technical issue with Power School, so I wanted to show you it live, but right now it's not showing what you would normally see on the screen, so we did a couple printouts for you. It's not the best, but it's what I had. I apologize.
You're being flexible, Carl.
Yes, yes, but on these, which I think is great, because it has, at the top of the page, it has a link for the login that you can probably save into your phone, and the substitute procedure, there's a generic login there that we'll get to you as soon as the system comes back up. So we'll get that out to you guys as quickly as we can. There, as you log in, you'll see the steps and procedures right there. You'll pick your school that you're looking for, your assignment, your classroom, and then take your attendance. Really, really quick and important to do that when you first get into the classroom and you get started. Just because you don't want to have that time when kids get in there, they get rocking and rolling on their phones, you want to be able to have that much bandwidth as you can to get that done quickly. Yeah.
Now, Power School, is this just for high school or is this for all schools?
We use this across the district, so all schools.
So
when-
every period, you would do it even in the elementary school?
Correct.
Yeah, and elementary school is a little different because it's just one time a day because you have the same class all day.
Right, that's
So
what
yes,
that's why I was
yes,
wondering.
yep, so we do it first thing in the morning
And that's it?
and then you don't do it, you don't have to do it again.
That was my next
Yeah.
And he was saying every period, and then that's where my
Yeah,
question was.
and when you go into Power School, you'll see like all of the subjects listed very much similar to the periods at the high school or middle school, but you only have to do it initially that first time.
First thing in the morning, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
So yeah, each screen, depending on the school, will look a little
Okay.
depending on where you are. The biggest thing I want you to take away from that is, again, just make sure you know what the screen looks like, where that login is, those step-by-step procedures. That's why we wanted to hand those out to you. So look at that. So as you can see up here, the screen is for, which school is that, Tim?
Sandra Hot.
All right, so you can see there, her course is there, which one, if you guys would tap into that, you see the students and be able to take your attendance there. You guys used Power School before? No, it's pretty straightforward, but if you have any questions, again, he will be available to help you get through that process as quickly as you can. Once you've done it a few times, you kind of get in that rhythm, and it doesn't really take much. Once you got navigate the screen a little bit and get familiar with the screens there, it's pretty straightforward. Anything to add?
No, I think I can cover that.
Just to add, so when you guys log in, when you select on the class that you're taking attendance for, it'll bring up a roster very similar to what the screen is showing. It automatically defaults to present, so everybody's present already, and you're just marking whether they're absent. Because you don't have to go in and put present for everybody. It already assumes everybody's present, and you're just marking who's not there. Okay?
Thank you, because in my last district was the opposite. So, they actually had to put present in, so, thank you, that's pretty cool.
And then the login, is there a password?
There is a password, and I'm gonna get that real quick out to you guys. It's a generic login, so you don't have to remember the 14 passwords. There's a generic login, the actual password one. I think we're changing it.
It's been changed, yeah, it's been transitioned,
So,
it hasn't changed.
I should have that by the end of the day, and I'll be able to get that out to the principals, so we can be able to get that out to you guys as quickly as possible.
Well, I guess the secretary, I'm not.
That's also correct too.
And eventually, the plan is to assign each sub their own specific login. We're just not there yet.
Correct.
So eventually, you may get a specific login just for you that you will use when you are sub.
Correct. We're moving towards that direction. We were hoping to implement it soon this year, but we may get there a little further down the road.
Also, just one other critical piece for the high school in terms of the attendance part. First period is where we take our daily attendance from, even though we take it every period. If a student, let's say, if you miss a student first period, if I'm not in class anymore, or I'm in class and you mark me absent accidentally, a phone call gets generated automatically and goes home. So that panics parents a little bit. So first period attendance is critical. Each period is critical, but first period more so, because that again is where we generate those automatic calls to go home. So every once in a while, Mr. Senior, get a phone call from a panicked parent saying, Jimmy's not in school today? Oh my, and we'll find out that Jimmy was in school, but someone just missed him on the attendance sheet. So again, it's critical, that first period attendance is critical to make sure you get that accurate.
Any questions on Power School? Again, I know there's some more information we have to get to you. We're going to try to get that out as quickly as possible. So we just want to make sure you guys know that. And am I correct, before we go over GCM training, you guys have done your GCM training? Okay. So we won't have to cover that. Any questions on ASOP, Power School? Again, the district website has the link if you need to contact us, and our information is on there on the website as well for all your other technical needs. If you have issues in the classroom, and I'm pretty sure the kids know the procedure as well. Some of them are more tech savvy than all of us, and I'm sure they'd be able to help. But that's how to reach us as quickly as possible. Don't feel free anytime to reach out to us. We will help you with anything you need. Anything else to add?
You'll see us around, so grab us if you need us.
Absolutely.
We can help you, we will.
Just to recap, I'll get out the substitute logins for you guys for Power School. And as soon as I have that, the principals and secretaries will know, and they'll get that out to you. All right, thank you.
Will you email that to them, or is it, okay?
Move to the back. What's at the back?
Yes.
Okay, and again, I'm not trying to reiterate a whole lot of different stuff, but on your handout that I gave you guys, just to kind of summarize some of the daily procedures, check-in times are a little different depending on the building. It's 7:25 for every building except for the ECLC, which is 7:30 check-in, right? Okay. Again, parking, if the teacher tells you where their spot is, feel free to park there. There are days where there might be an opening for a teacher to sub, but the teacher might still be in the district or in the building, or maybe they're doing IEP meetings or whatever the case is. So again, just look to again, we're all going to encourage our teachers to be a little more proactive as far as putting that information in their notes when they put it into ASOP as to whether or not their parking space will be available. Sign in at the main office at each of the buildings. After signing in, please make contact with the secretary, which, you met 3 of the ladies this morning. They will give you your schedule for the day, and if there were any changes, if they needed to be pulled for any reason. And then at the end of the day, just please make sure that you check back in with the secretary to, give any feedback that you may have about the classes that you covered, or if the secretary needs anything from you. Okay? And then finally, and before I pass it over to, actually, we wrapped up a little early, but we'll give you guys a little break in a little while. Just to kind of reiterate something that Mrs. Pesolano had mentioned about the confidentiality and just the overall professionalism that we expect of not only our own teachers, but of you guys, because you guys are an extension of our teaching staff. Just to make sure that you are conducting yourselves in a professional manner at all times. So, professional dress, which, again, that is included in the substitute handbook, very similar to what the teacher's dress code is. But again, if it's a dress down day, if it's a jeans day or a spirit day, substitutes will let you know, because again, we want you guys to, be part of it. We want you guys to be able to participate in whatever the activities are for that day. So dressing appropriately, arriving on time, positive interaction with the staff and the students. Again, those of you, if you haven't subbed in the district yet, you will find that it is a great place to work. Great people, great staff, great kids. We're really going to enjoy it. Phone etiquette. So, for instance, me being the assistant principal in the high school, sometimes I will have to call for students to come down to my office. So when I call the room, what I would like, is for you to at least identify yourself. If I don't know who you are, just say, hello, this is Mr. Senior, room 213, whatever classroom you're in. Just so that way you're identifying who you are, because sometimes there have been times where I've called and subs only just picked up and said hello, and they sound like a student. I'm like, well, is the student answering the phone? Is the substitute answering the phone? So just identify yourself when the phone call is made. And this is more for the upper grades, but try not to engage in conversations with students that aren't appropriate for school. Sometimes the kids try to be a little more friendly with you than they probably should, and they, want to talk about their weekend and stuff like that. Just try not to engage in those types of conversations if you can help it. Again, I would stress not to share your contact information with them. Wouldn't friend them on Facebook, even if they try to friend you. I know you want to develop those positive relationships, those positive connections with the kids, but there are just some lines that you just shouldn't cross. So, and then finally, kind of just going back to what Ms. Pesolano said, remember that anything that happens during the school day is confidential. We would appreciate it if you wouldn't discuss it, outside of school when you bump into somebody at the supermarket. Hey, guess what happened today? We would appreciate it if you guys wouldn't do that. Okay? All right. At this point, we're a little early, so I'm going to give you guys a chance to just kind of digest all the information that we kind of just thrown at you. We did have a couple people come in a little later, so if you guys wouldn't mind, I'm Mr. Senior, I'm the assistant principal at the high school. If you guys wouldn't mind introducing yourselves to the group.
I'm Maria Payer. I'm a familiar sub in the district.
Okay, welcome.
I'm Rosanna Ward. I'm a familiar sub in this district. I actually retired after 30 years as well, I was school counselor. Still nice to come back.
Yes.
I'm Joe Ruggieri, substitute here, as well as a freshman football coach.
Very nice. Thank you for missing practice for this.
Oh, you really killed me. Sean was watching his watches, I was watching mine.
All right, well, like I said, I'm gonna give you guys a chance to kind of digest all the information that we gave out to you guys right now before we move on to the next part of the session. We're gonna wait for the rest of the substitutes to join us. Again, coffee, donuts, help yourselves. There is a restroom right there as well if you need to use the restroom. You know, if you have any questions for us that you thought of as the presentation was going on so far this morning, feel free. We're all here. Okay? Thank you. Sorry to interrupt the conversation, but we do have coffee and donuts over here, so please help yourselves. We do not want them to go to waste, so if you guys want help, dig in. How you doing? Good.
We ready to go?
I guess.
You might want to cue.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming today. Taking time out of your day, we do appreciate it. I would like to introduce Mrs. Grossman. She's our superintendent. She would like to welcome you guys and say a few words, and then we'll get rolling with our presentation for you guys today. So, hands it off to her. Thank you.
Good morning. I did walk around briefly to say hello. My name is Ginny Grossman. I'm the new superintendent here at the Woodstown-Pilesgrove Regional School District. And the first thing that I wanted to do was to say thank you to all of you. I don't call substitutes. To me, you all are guest teachers in our buildings. And I think we should contemplate making that change official. Because a guest teacher is a very important person. When a teacher is absent, it's your job. You're charged with the task of moving our children forward in the absence of their regular teacher, and you play a major role in carrying out the activities planned by that teacher. Principals and teachers value effective substitutes and recognize that your efforts provide continuity in the regular teacher's absence. For this, we are most appreciative. I wanted to give you my top 5 tips for guest teachers. The first one I haven't been doing lately, but the first one is rest. You get those ASOP calls at the crack of dawn before the chickens. So it's important to get a good night's rest before you come in and before you are on ASOP gathering those calls. Even if you don't get called, at least you'll be rested for the rest of the day. The next one is prepare. You'll be thankful if you did prepare a little substitute bag, and there are so many former teachers in the room. I call myself a bag lady. I walked in carrying a bag. It's just what we do. If you prepare a bag with maybe a couple of icebreaker activities, I used to do one with magazine covers that I just cut my address off of course, and had kids select the magazine cover that best represented them and introduce themselves to you with that, so that you have some activities if there is a break in the day. Downtime is the enemy as a substitute teacher. The more we can keep kids engaged, the better. The other thing that I would like to do as someone who was in the classroom for many years is implore you to follow the plans. If the teacher is absent and they did leave plans for you, please follow them. Please keep things organized for the teacher on the way back. I would love it, or on the day back. I would love it when the guest teacher would leave me a note of this is what we did this extra, we didn't get to this, just letting the regular teacher know how much you have accomplished. I still do this. This is kind of funny. I am not a morning person. I fake it. So in the morning, I have my 5 outfits planned for the week because I can't think about what I'm going to wear. So it's always good, especially when you're getting your sub call at 5 in the morning, to have an outfit prepared. Professional but comfortable is the way to go. Always flat shoes. My shoes are, can I chase a kindergarten student in these shoes? Yes, I can, even though I'm fat 52. Okay, the next one is smile. We don't want you to be known as the grumpy guest teacher. If you come in, plaster a smile on your face. Personal story, I had an elementary school student, not a middle school student, named Peter. I was always the co-teacher in an inclusive classroom back in the day, and he had Down syndrome. If I wasn't smiling, he would be attached to my fat leg asking me what was wrong. That child behaviorally conditioned me to smile and to be consistent and have an even tone, because it really impacted his learning if I didn't. Boy, that has served me well over the past 25 years. So plaster that smile on your face. We want you to be happy to be here. We have great people here in this district, so it's easy to smile. And the last and most important thing is to be confident. Our students need you to be strong, confident, and consistent. They do tend to test the limits when a guest teacher is there, just saying. So if you have that confidence when you come in owning the room, that will keep them on their toes. With those tips, I'd like to turn it back over to Mr. Senior and again express my sincere appreciation. We need you to be here. Tell your friends how great we are. We need more subs, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in our buildings and working together this year. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mrs. Grossman.
My pleasure.
Okay, so my name is Rich Senior. I'm the assistant principal at the high school. So those of you that have something at the high school or will be something at the high school, you will be seeing me quite a lot. Before we move on with our presentation to Mr. Snyder's part, I do want to reintroduce our Chief Technology Officer and our Technology Technician, so they can go over a couple things with Power School and all that before we pass it over to Mr. Snyder.
Hello everyone, my name is Carl Adams, I'm the Chief Technology Officer here. And back there you'll see Tiffany Roback, our lead technician. So we are your point of contact when you have those tech requests, incidents in the classroom, any of those questions, please bring them to us. We'll answer them as quickly as we can. For just a quick info to contact us when you need us really quick, on the website you have our TSR link. I'm sure you guys are familiar. It's a little different than the last couple of years. It's a Google form, very quick, easy to fill out, be descriptive, and that gets pushed out to everyone in the technology team. Hopefully, we'll get that up on the screen.
I am,
so you guys can see
sorry.
it.
So Rob, you can do TSRs.
You can. No music. But yeah, if you have those quick technology questions, something's not working in your classroom, shoot that TSR. One of us will come down. We also have our technology teacher leads that if they're in the area, they can help you as well. But that's your first line of communication. I know sometimes your guys are in the classroom, you're rocking and rolling. You may not have time to track somebody down. That's needed as well. Usually whoever's closest in the area will be there. There's the phone up there. So quick, easy Google form, and it sends us an alert. So that is your first line. Okay. Any questions there? So I also want to direct you on the website. We've thrown up there on the resource tab under substitute training. So you guys that were here at the first session, we didn't have this, threw this up just quickly, are your links for ASOP Power School GCN training. If you have not completed your GCN training or you need a login, please feel free to reach out to us. We can help you out while Joyce is out of the district right now, or you can reach out to Joyce when she is here to get your login for that. ASOP is right there. The links will take you right to the screen. You'll have your login. If you do not know your login, we found out this a couple minutes ago as well. Again, reach out to us, reach out to Joyce. We can give you your PIN number. Usually it's associated with your phone number, and they generate a PIN. Yes?
Was that the universal login? Like say if we work for Source for Teachers, it was linked to like one district?
For
Would
ASOP?
that still work?
I believe so.
Would
I
it
have to check. I'm
probably
not
still
sure.
work? Okay.
Check with that, because Source for Teachers is different than ASOP now. Source for Teachers moved away a little bit about a year ago, so we'll look into
I
that.
remember there was like a universal login.
Yes.
for any-
Yes, I think that's still the case, but
So obviously if it doesn't work, then
Let us
then
know.
let us know.
look into it.
Correct.
Okay,
So I'm
thank
gonna make
you.
sure I
We'll
pre-qualify my
investigate.
answers
Okay.
before we do anything.
Thanks a lot.
If you go to the Power School link, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
This is your main, where you'll put your attendance in. Right now, we're having a little technical issue with Power School, so you're not going to see it live right now if you try to log into it now, but it will be up and running by the first day of school. That's the link there. You'll pick your school, you'll pick your login, and you'll put in the login, which is also a universal login. I believe you have it, the Woodstown.
Yes, I know that's the,
Yeah, password is attendance, all lowercase. It should be students.
the one you just did?
Yeah.
The
The actual login may have changed this year, so we're working on that again. We'll get that, all that information, the proper username and stuff will go out to the principals and secretaries, and they'll push that out to you guys as quickly as they can.
I believe it's, you don't have the attendance login? Okay, so the password's attendance, is that what you?
Password is attendant.
This all just came new to us like a few minutes ago, so.
So we apologize for that. That, again, that, depending on what building you're in, your screen will look a little different. So, as Dr. Hoops has stressed the last session, that you guys are in high school or something like that, that first period attendance is very important, because those are what generates all our calls out to parents that their kid is not in school. So we don't want those panicky parents calling that they sent their kid to school and they got a phone call, where are they? Things like that. So that first period attendance is definitely important, even though you take them from all the other periods, that first one, be mindful of getting that in accurately. The other schools are a little different depending on, I believe, CLC, it's that one time. You have that you're with your students all day, so you do it once in the morning and that pretty much covers you. So make sure you play around with the screen. I'm sure all of you are more familiar than I right now. So, but if you have those questions, please reach out to us. If you have trouble logging in, please reach out to us or anything like that. Any questions so far about that? Great question. So if there is a computer in your classroom, there is a generic login that usually the teacher leaves from what I understand. If they do not leave it for you, please, again, put that TSR in, and we will come get you logged in quickly. I know a lot of people access PowerSchool, the other things with your phone. So you can do that as well if there's no device in the room. Any other questions? That's a great question.
Yeah, sorry, it happened through the office. Obviously, there's no computer.
Correct. Any other questions about ASOP, about PowerSchool? Are we all familiar with ASOP? We did kind of do a quick video in the last session. If you needed to know what the screen looked like, how to log in, things like that, we can run that again if you're not familiar. I think that's pretty much it.
So we'll be around, don't hesitate to ask either. If there's something that you can't get an answer to, you just see us around those buildings. I'm located on the second floor, Carlisle's on the third, so you want to put that TSR in, fine. But you also have a list of extensions in your classroom, so don't hesitate to call us. We'll come down and help with whatever we can.
Yes.
If you bring your own laptop with a MacBook, whatever, you get into the laptop or anything like that?
Right now, it's a great question. Right now, yes, you can hop on the Wi-Fi without any trouble or anything like that. We will be passcoding the Wi-Fi networks soon. There will be a staff one for students, things like that. You will be given that information to log in. So that's just for us, for security purposes. We find that that's the direction that we're heading. So all the staff will be given the staff information, so you have that prior to come. Any questions? Yeah.
I'm a sub nurse, so is there not going to be access to document visits to the office online?
That's a good question. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I would check that for you and hopefully get an answer back for you. Because I know the subs do take the nurses do take their laptops with them, so I'm not exactly sure what they leave in place for somebody that's in the substitute. I'll look into that and get back to you. Anything else? Yes.
Are there going to be extra laptops in the placement of the office?
Good question. We're working on it. That's where we want to go. That's where the discussions have gone, in that having a device there for the substitute. Where I'm going back and forth right now is I just don't want to put any type of computer in there for you because it's quality enough that you don't have any trouble. So if we have enough laptops, we will do it for everyone. If not, then we're not going to do it for anyone. Does that make sense?
I don't think you need that many. There's not that many of us.
5 or 6. Okay.
Most of us use our own devices.
That's what I've heard too as well.
So
Right now, I would say plan on using your own device at the moment until we work out.
I mean, you have a couple backups, but you don't need that many.
Okay, good to know. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
morning, everyone. I've kind of been hiding in the background over here. Just so that you know, you're not on candid camera, but we are filming this training for anyone who comes into the district after this school year. So just wanted you to be aware that that will be available for substitutes if you need to revisit anything from today as well. All right, so one of my roles here, I'm Christopher Snyder. I'm an instructional facilitator here in the district, but I'm also the school safety and security coordinator here in the district. So just have a few things to go over with you, but in this binder, I'm holding our emergency response plan. It is a confidential document, but every single teacher in every single classroom, including our cafeteria people, our maintenance people, security people, all have a copy of this for your reference. So when you go into a classroom, the first thing you want to do is try to find or locate this, and I'm going to suggest again to our principals to make sure when they're putting in the plans that they tell you where this is. Generally speaking, every classroom on their desk. Now we've been in construction for about 5 years, so bear with me on this. Okay, so every classroom inside the desk where your chair slides in, there should be a clear binder holder in there where you can pull this document out of. I would say I'm about 50% sure that there's still one in every single classroom. Desks change, rooms change, they break. Unfortunately, it's been one of those things that are low on the totem pole in all of the things that we've been doing in the district. So some teachers may keep it in their desk, some may keep it on a bookshelf, but hopefully it's somewhere where it's easily accessible for you to visit. For all of the substitutes that have been here in the district, I know you're familiar with this document. And for the few of you that are new, this is what we would call our security Bible. I completely revamped it last summer. There's no major changes to it this year. It's just a couple of typo things that are in there that got cleaned up, but no major changes to the procedures that we do every single day. Generally speaking, the binder in itself, if you look at the operations plan, you know, is all part of our processes that we use here in the district on a daily basis. So I'll go over what's inside this in a minute. But some of the things that you need to know is that, you know, you're not assigned what's called a proximity card. So each one of us here that are full-time employees have what's known as a proximity card. So when you go to each one of the buildings, you'll see there's an access point. A lot of secure buildings have them these days. You'll see teachers, they go up to it and they'll just put their card up to it and it'll open the doors for them. The buildings are open from 7:15 to 7:45 a.m. So that fits times that you need to show up here in the district if you're planning for a day of substitution for one of the teachers in the district. However, if you get here at 7 o'clock, you're either going to have to buzz in or you'll see a staff member that is there. As long as you have your ID with you, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, and you can show the teacher, hopefully they'll ask you if they don't know you, but sometimes they don't. They'll just say, hey, come on in. That does happen as well, but hopefully you can show your ID. Yes?
If our ID is, like mine's probably 5 to 6 years old, it's still valid? I mean, is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, it's unless you've changed
Still
radically.
No. I
as
haven't
a
had
person.
plastic surgery.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's a great question. And if you want to update your ID, you're welcome to do so. That's something that I do as well. So I'd be happy to do that for you. And also for your, you know, buzzing in and things like that, you're always to report right to the main office. And I know that all the principals have talked to you about that many times before, and you pick up your assignments by speaking to the secretary that's in the main office there. Once again, for each building, there is a school security specialist. If you're not familiar with a school security specialist, about 3 years ago, we contracted the group called KDNFS, which is a security group that allows armed guards in each of our buildings. We call them school security specialists because they integrate into the life of the school well beyond just standing at a doorway each day. So we utilize them in a lot of our athletic activities. We utilize them for supervision in our cafeteria. You'll see them out and about on the grounds. These are really great and personable guys who are very used to being in the school environment. The kids know them well, the staff know them well, and they can be relied on for a lot of things. So if you happen to walk in the building and you see one of them, which most likely you will, most of them will be stationed right at the access point where you come in the morning at the main doors, but sometimes they're circulating around. but make sure you introduce yourself to them if you haven't been here in the district before, so that they know who you are. And the different names of each one of them you can see, and of course the administrators are going to make sure that you know who they are when you arrive anyway. But Rick O'Brien, Brian Beebe, Tony Rastelli, and Craig Mondano, those are each of the security personnel. They've been here each for a couple of years now. And as I said, they are a great resource as well. So I'm in charge of school safety and security in the district. I'm located in Woodstown High School, just right outside of the main access doors. So if I'm not available to be seen, certainly pass along that information to them if there's anything you need that's related to security or you have a question. Some of the other things I want to talk to you about the binder itself. It's broken down into 3 particular sections. You can see that there are tabs that are on it to make it pretty simple for you to access. You know, whenever we think of codes, you know, we think of stoplights. So this has been a best practice across the country. New Jersey adopted this process about maybe 3-4 years ago to try to separate these emergency response plans for easy access for not only just full-time staff, but also people who come here in the building who may be a contractor or somebody who may be, you know, running security as a, you know, athletic event, something along those lines. So it makes it easy for you to understand what our processes are should something occur. So again, the green section is an administrative. One of the things that I'd like you to do, if you ever, you know, are in a classroom, take a few minutes to familiarize yourself with the incident command structure is very important. It flows from the top down. I'm the incident command commander for the district, along with the superintendent and the business administrator, and then that rolls down to each of the principals in each of the buildings, all the way down to the crisis team here in the district. So just familiarize yourself with how that works so that you know in that chain of command who you need to be speaking to should you have some type of incident occur or you suspect an incident. These are the access numbers, very important for you to know. If you don't know them already, just familiarize yourself with the main line for each of the buildings. These are the direct extensions. So if you dialed 769-0144 and it says please enter your extension, that's your extension. If you're in a classroom, you can just pick up the phone and dial that extension immediately. So if you're in ECLC, you're going to pick up the phone and hit 33-100, and that will take you right to the main office. So that's always a critical thing. Remember, in any incident that occurs, seconds can mean lives. I know I hate to always sometimes put that on substitutes. I know when you come here, you don't have any expectation of that. But as we all know, incidents occur in places where they never expect them to occur. So I need not go over any of those things. But I just want you to know and be prepared and to make sure that you take a look at this. This is very important. And a lot of times, staff members, you know, will help guide you as you go through your day whenever it comes to a drill or some type of unplanned event. You know, sometimes a fire alarm will go off. Sometimes the electricity goes off. Sometimes there's a water leak. Sometimes there's an accident out front on Route 40 where we have to change what we're doing out of the normal day. So, of course, the staff members are your best resource, and your administrators will guide you from there. Your school security officer, generally speaking, in times of an incident, he is a first responder. So always keep that in mind. Likelihood in an incident, he will not be available to answer your question or help guide you. He will be responding to whatever that incident is, just so that you know that. You can go to the next slide. All right, so the second portion of the binder itself is a yellow portion, which is amber, which means that, you know, we're on alert, but we can continue the functions that we normally do each day. A lot of times what we may do is something that's known as shelter in place, which is in the red area. But a shelter in place can look like a lot of different things. And I'll go over that in a minute with you. But these are critical incidents, but not necessarily something that would cause us to evacuate or lock down. So you might hear a principal come over the intercom and say, you know, staff, and they're supposed to be very specific. So there's been an incident out on Route 40, there's been a serious accident. They are blocking off Route 40 from the Elmer Circle all the way to Wawa here in Woodstown. So there's no access for anyone to get through during that time there. We are going to continue our operations as normal. We will continue to function as we work through this incident. So you're going to get as much information as you need at the moment. And then generally speaking, during an incident of something like that nature, shelter in place, you'd have people either picking up the phone and calling you or visiting your classroom. A lot of times in my experience, I've been an administrator here in the district 13 years, and we've had incidents where we've had major storms that knocked out the electricity and it's black in our buildings. I go door to door, and substitutes included, talking to each one of them, letting them know where we are, what's happening, what's going on, keep the kids calm, things like that. So you need not, respond in a way in which you're kind of like not knowing what's going on. We will get you information as soon as we have it available. But a shelter in place is a time when we can either say we may go into a lockdown. There's no district travel. So let's just say that you're a substitute for one of the employees that travels. So you might be Mr. Ludlam, who's the band director. So Shannon Sheridan would know this. So Shannon gets the call, okay, we're in a lockdown and we can't move, and she knows that she has period coverage over a Mary Shoemaker. Within 5 minutes she's supposed to leave. So what am I supposed to do? You are supposed to stay in a lockdown. That's your job. All the administrators will know this. They will be looking at the schedule and developing who's where, what, and when. We have, like Mr. Senior will know that we have people and students out of VOTEC. VOTEC is supposed to come back at this time. Where are they supposed to go? So these are things that we are processing behind the scenes. And we would communicate that to Shannon in some way. If we're on a serious lockdown, then we lock down and that's all there is to it. But if we're in a shelter in place, Mr. Senior may go up to Shannon and say, hey, just delay. We got about 15, 20 minutes where we're going to go over there. I've already talked to Ms. Chaffee. I let her know. She's got coverage. We'll let you know when you can head on over there for that particular coverage over there. So you have to trust us that we're following up behind the scenes on all the different things that you have to do. We do know, and it becomes stressful. It becomes very stressful when you're in a small district like this, and everybody's trying to work together to do a lot of different things at the same time. So these variables will occur, and when they do, we address them as they occur. So my best advice, especially when we talk about amber, is normal operations unless otherwise instructed. That's pretty much how that goes. Red is obviously for your most serious incidents. Yes, you have a question?
Yeah, what if you're traveling between two schools and the lockdown occurs while you're on the road?
Yes, that's a very good question. So that can be handled in a lot of different ways, but generally speaking, you are not to enter the building. You are to keep away. So if you knew you got an alert via a text or somebody called you while you're traveling between two buildings, or we've had this occur too. Remember this, we practice lockdown drills. And a lot of times, they're announced, and sometimes they're not announced. So, and we do that for a particular reason. Anybody think of why we might do that? Announce them and not announce them?
Just to see how we respond.
Because remember this, just like anything you do in life, unless you fail at it, you don't know what's wrong with it. So we a lot of times want failure, so we know how to better respond to handle that. And believe me, we do have some things that we would like to correct that are major things to correct here in the district, from warning lights to intercom, variety of different things. We circumvent them now by using our own resources, but generally speaking, those things can occur. So you may show up to a building and it's in lockdown. You can't get in. Your access code card, or you don't have an access code card, but you can't get in. They won't allow you to get in. When you know that, if it's a lockdown, get back in your car, move to a safe distance away. That would be my advice. And we will address whatever the other issues are in the immediacy. But safety first. You always have to err on the side of safety. We can't figure out how to get coverage for a classroom of kids. We can't figure out how to save you if there's a shooter in the building and you're walking in. That we can't do. So that's a great question. Yes?
So I guess the girls with my hand too. I know last year I was at the Shoemaker and they had a lockdown, and then I had a student that started to have a bit of a panic attack because the code word wasn't said. You didn't say your middle name was Ruby. So is that code word still in play, or?
That is for Mary Shoemaker ECLC, and I don't know about the middle school or high school. I don't know.
work. You guys use, safe words and release children. That's what this is talking about.
No, we don't practice safe words in the middle school and the high school. You remain on a lockdown until otherwise
Yeah.
notified. And when you have that, you will have issues from time to time. Kids know it from practicing all the time, but we know that kids have anxieties and fears. Staff members have anxieties and fears. And sometimes that happens, especially on an unannounced. You don't know how to respond. 99% of our kids are conditioned. They understand, they know, they practiced from the time that they were little. They know this is a standard thing that they do. But even when you have students with disabilities, that can sometimes be, something that's a challenge. And as the classroom teacher, you have to think on your feet regardless. And you have to do what you believe is the best thing to do. Try to keep them calm. It'll be over soon. A lot of times, especially in classrooms, a light is very effective. Every classroom, just so that you know, has a light as well. So if you are, substituting regularly for someone, ask them, where's your light at? Most of them put them in their desk. They're supposed to make sure the batteries are charged and they work. Can I say that that's a perfect system? Probably not. But also you have a phone, and 90% of our phones have flashlights on them. Turn on a flashlight, get in a safe area of the classroom, keep the blinds down, everything dark. You have a blind that's on the windows, and you pull those down. When you're getting ready to do a lockdown, move them to a safe area, and if you need to turn on the light on your phone, then do so. That's not going to interfere with what you're doing as far as procedures. If it will keep the students calm, then that's what we're trying to do. And generally speaking, any incident, whether it be real or practiced, is over very quickly. And considering the fact that we have first responders right inside of our buildings, I can tell you it will be handled within minutes. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
And the word is still the same this year, or is it a new word? Same word. Still wordy.
Okay, so and you can see if you go in the red binder section, when you open it up in the first couple of pages of it, it'll go through what the most serious incidents and how to respond to many of those. From evacuation, relocation, lockdown, shelter in place, run, hide, fight, duck, and cover. All right, so as you can see, they kind of go in order. So evacuation, relocation, the plans are right inside the red binder for all schools here in the district. You have a plan A, B, and C. Some are on site. Some are we're moving off-site to specific locations. The administration organizes all of that if we have to have transportation or otherwise, or we're moving kids on feet. That may happen. We may have to do that. We have to come up with the best response plan that we can have. We try to do the best that we can. Remember, if we're in a lockdown situation, we are addressing something immediately. But if it's something that we need to relocate for whatever particular reason, I'm going to knock on this and pretend it's wood. Bomb scares, what they call sometimes swatting now, is a very common thing, where there's a robocall that comes in, untraceable. And it says that you're going to have a terrorist event attacking your building within 1 hour's time. And we have to respond to that and react to that. So, and from the state of New Jersey, I believe last year, they had somewhere around 46 of those. And this is what the state of New Jersey is recommending. State police, prosecutor's office, Office of Emergency Management, do not leave. And why? Because not one incident proved to be valid. None. Zero. And these are things that kids are doing. They can bounce something from overseas, bring it back in here. These kids are technologically savvy. And they bring it in because they got a major test today. And they don't want to take it. Mom and Dad wouldn't let them stay home. Oh, yes. Yes. And the state police and Office of Emergency Management is getting very good at eventually tracking them down. But it takes them time to do so. But that's their recommendation on those things. So those are things that we have to evaluate. Somebody writes on a wall in the bathroom stall, there is a bomb, it will go off. What does that mean? When, where, why? We know it's probably a falsehood, but we still take necessary precautions. We get together in what's called a tabletop exercise, and we get together and we discuss what's our action plan for something like this, and we do that very quickly. So just so that you know, there's times where you may not know. You may be just moving on with your day, but I can promise you we train on these things and we plan for these things and we make sure that we're prepared. So inside here, when you talk about evacuation relocation, again, your building level administration will pass along whatever information that you need. It's just like when you substitute. Every administrator here, including Mrs. Grossman, talked to you about being cognizant, knowing what's going on, making sure you have good supervision. Same process, whether you're walking kids out of a building or you're in a classroom. Shelter in place, I talked about a little bit. Lockdown again. Dr. Hoops went over that earlier. Mr. Senior has discussed it as well, so have other administrators. But generally speaking, when you're in a classroom, a lockdown simply means that you're going into a lockdown and the room will be shut with no access for anyone, for any reason. You know, sometimes people ask me, you know, if a kid's on the door and you know they're pounding on the door, what do I do? And there's no good answer to that, folks. I'd love to tell you precisely what the right answer is on that, but there isn't a good answer on that. The answer is you use your best judgment that you've been given. Most times we'll tell you, do not open the door, not for any reason, because you don't know what's on the other side. Could be a shooter has a gun to a kid's head. You don't know. But generally speaking, it has to be up to you what you decide on those. Yes?
We're in a room without a key and no way to lock the door, we're to move to someone else's classroom.
Yep. So that has been addressed as well, but for all of you veterans that are in here, again, reiterating, if you are in a substitute position and you know, 9 times out of 10, most of our security drills are announced. You only have a couple of them that are unannounced to practice what we need to practice. Right? We're not trying to fool anybody here, and we want to make sure that people are comfortable in our processes. But, as Mrs. Sheridan said, you're in a classroom, they're calling for a lockdown, make sure that you know your proximity. Oh, I'm going to be in room 111. Okay, across the hall, it's a teacher I know very well. I'm going to bring my kids over to your room. She'll be able to lock that door, 2 classrooms together. That's your process, because you're not issued keys. So you have to think quickly and move quickly. If there's an unannounced drill, it's in between periods, and you're headed to a classroom, move into the closest classroom that you see. At that point, as you're moving into the hallway, you have no accountability for any particular students at that moment. Staff members are trained. Pull, grab them, everybody you can. Get them into your room, get them safely locked down. We practice for those things. So just be advised, when those things happen, you're always going to try to rely on common sense. I know that's sometimes in high demand when we're in critical situations. Believe me, we all do. But that's why we practice a lot, so that we can make the mistakes now so that we don't make them when something really happens. The other piece here is run, hide, and fight. This has been, again, a common practice that's been pushed through by the state of New Jersey's Office of Homeland and Security Management. And that is that you are in a situation where there's no room to run to. You happen to be subbing for a PE class today, and your kids are outside, and you're playing, and you receive a text from Ms. Bramante, who's the athletic director and PE supervisor, that says, we're in a lockdown. Please move to a safe location. What safe location? We're on the tennis court. Where are we supposed to go?
Can we go into Shoemaker?
If Shoemaker is not on a lockdown, absolutely. But if Shoemaker's on a lockdown too, you're going to stop play, what the kids are doing. Students need to come to me, let's go. Move very quickly and just move away from the campus to a safe location where you think is the safest place to be. It could be behind a building. It could be, you know, in a car or something that's located close by. I mean, those are things that you have to think on your feet about. There's, again, we can only plan for so many things, as I'm sure all of you know. But there are some things you just can't plan for, and you have to use your best judgment. You will not be faulted for your best judgment. Trust me when I tell you. We're asking you to think a little bit outside of the box when it comes to those particular things. I'm hopeful you will never have to have a situation like that. But I always want to be frank about the worst case scenarios that you get in some of these places. Like, what do I do? Don't overthink it either. Again, your goal is to keep kids safe and supervised. That's what you need to do. And of course, we won't forget you. You won't be out on the tennis courts and all of a sudden like, I'm stranded out here. What do I do? People will know. Supervisors will know. Colleagues will know. And then we will plan from there. But run, hide, and fight is your last measure. So Run away from the situation. You see a shooter that comes on campus and you're outside, guys, run. You don't worry about accountability or anything. Run. That's what you do. Hide. Get somewhere where that shooter is not going to see you. And if you have to, if it's in close proximity, you got to fight. You know, and I know that's not the greatest scenario, but it's the one that I can best give you. You know, and that has saved lives, believe it or not, several times. Unfortunately, you know, sometimes students have to jump in and help, and that's happened too across the nation. So I hate to be the one to have to tell you these things, you know, but these are things that we have to make sure that we train for regardless. It's hard to believe that we have to do that in an educational environment. I never had to do it when I was in school, not once. But here we are, and we know the realities of things. All right, also, bring this binder with you wherever you go if you are on a drill. Fire drill, security drill, make sure it is close by. Because inside of it has particular areas that will be helpful to you other than these three, which is your appendix area. At the end of this binder, very close, is an appendix. And the appendix has some forms for accountability in it. It also has maps if you should have to go to an evacuation route. So you'll see maps that plan, they're just Google Maps, and they show walking paths that you would go. Just in case, you know, you're not familiar with it, or just in case it's an unplanned thing and you haven't had time to practice or train with anybody up until that time. Let's go to the next slide. The other part in here, I'm sorry, after the appendix is what's known as the important numbers. So let's just say you have questions and you haven't heard from anybody or anything. Here's a variety of different numbers which you can use to reach out, including my own phone number in here. It's by title, it's not by name, but there are important numbers in here which you can reach out and call should you need to. So this is kind of like, I don't want to use the word the Bible, but it's a guide for you to do with anything to do with our emergency responses. Drills, again, one fire, one security. I know that the principals and Rich have talked to you about that. And you can see you're going to go to your designated areas, and each building has their own processes when it comes to that. Again, colleagues and honestly students are probably your best resource. Kids do things repetitively, and a lot of times that is very helpful to you to understand what the processes are. But as Rich pointed out, or Dr. Hoop pointed out, variables can occur. So we may go up to an exit where you're normally used to going out of, or the kids are usually used to going out of, and I'm standing here like this and says, there's a fire in this portion. What are you guys going to do? So again, these are the variables we use to try to test our processes. And as I said, I've never once, and I'm pretty sure all the administrators could reiterate this, had students panic. They go, oh, and they move on to the next exit. That's what they do. Because they're conditioned. They understand it. Again, PA is always the standard method, but should the PA be down? Should there be an issue with the PA being down? We would use alternate resources from classroom phones, personal visits to each of your rooms. So practice full-scale drills can lead to a disruption in a school day. So, you know, you have to plan accordingly for that as well. So if a staff member leaves you a plan and it has administer an assessment for me, and we have a lockdown drill or a quiz plan, just make a notation in your plans and say, you know, was not able to complete this because of this particular disruption on that day. Most staff members will know that is there. Most staff members do not. They try not to take off on a day when they know that there are drills or events or things like that that would kind of jam you up a little bit. But just be cognizant of that. I talked about practicing and where you would go and participating in fire drills. There's a sign by each of your exits by the door. So should you not know, you've been in a classroom all the time over here, but now you're in X over there. Just make sure you look at the sign that's by the exit of the door. It just shows the path in which you're supposed to go. All right, again, fire drill procedures. Very simply, you know, the map is posted in your room, class roster, orange attendance slip to take the roll, or whatever the attendance slip is for each of the buildings. Make sure you take accurate attendance. That is the biggest thing. Yes?
All right, so if I'm putting on there, like, let's say I have a class and I have Johnny, but Johnny was not in school. Do I put Johnny on there as
Yes.
absent? Okay.
Yep.
Because I was getting two different things.
Yeah, always record exactly what you see. Don't try to think of any of the other variables with
But
it.
even if they weren't in my class to begin with, they were not in school at all that day, I still
Correct.
put them on the register.
Yep. Because all they're doing is verifying it against the attendance run. So, you know, if you list 3 kids that are absent and 2 of them were already on the attendance run, okay, check, check, we know they weren't here. Third one, where did he go? Right? And so a lot of times, and it's easy for the administrator, part of that process is to prevent kids, they're kids. You know? Especially, you know, high school kids are more prone to do it. You know it because you were a high school kid, you know? I want to go see my girlfriend over here, or I want to go talk to John about the game that's coming up. You know, so they'll kind of mosey themselves over to another classroom, especially if it's an extended drill. So let's just say I'm in my office and all of a sudden the alarm goes off. I'm like, okay, that one wasn't planned. What happened? And it can be a variety of things. I know most staff members immediately go in their brain, all right, who pulled the alarm, right? They run down the top 10 list of kids that they would think that pulled the alarm. But a lot of times, too, we're in an old building, so we have sensors that can go bad. We can have a chem experiment. We've had that happen before, where it just created an ungodly amount of smoke, unplanned, and boom, the alarm goes off. And it's working as it's supposed to. And everyone follows the procedures that they always need to do. So those unplanned things can happen. So again, the attendance is so important to the building level administration, because if that one student goes off somewhere else and we have a serious incident and we don't know where Johnny is, I'm going to tell you, I as a parent am going to be pretty upset. So we want to make sure that we know where all our kids are at all times. So that's a critical element, especially when we're practicing drills. You can't go wrong taking attendance multiple times, especially if you're out there for an extended period of time. All right, also, students got to remain with their respective classes. We just talked about that. Attendance, not present, and the administrators collect those slips and make sure that they verify the attendance. All right. Security drills, I went over that already, but again, I am here, I am in the building every day. If you look this over and you say, I'm just not sure, I'm curious, you know, you always have a building level administrator to speak to, a school security specialist to speak to, who are extremely familiar. And the other piece I should have told you about all the school security specialists, they are all retired police officers. Every one of them had rank as well before they left. Like Craig Mangano, who was the high school one, was a captain of the police. So, you know, he is very familiar. Tony Rastelli was an investigative lieutenant for homicide. So, you know, these are guys that are very well schooled in security, police practices, and tactics, and are an awesome resource. Plus, they're really great guys. They're really great with the kids as well. I highly suggest all of you, if you have not met them, introduce yourself to them, have a conversation with them. Many of them do a lot of different things, from working in our clubs or participating as a coach, as a volunteer. They do a lot of things for our schools well beyond keeping us safe. So again, if there's anything you need to know, they're a great resource, or obviously you can reach me at snyder.c@woodstown.org, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Questions you have for me in regards to the security manual or any other issues, you have, you know, concerns about situations, or you've been in a situation you weren't sure what to do. All right, great. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Senior. Oh, well, thank you.
Okay, so before we wrap up here, we will have a short question and answer session at the end in case there's any questions that you guys have. Myself, as well as Ms. Carpenter, Ms. Hildebrand, and Ms. Pestilano, is going to kind of go through some do's and don'ts, some scenarios, just so that you guys are prepared for. And again, as Mr. Snyder said, it's very difficult to prepare you for every possible situation, but just kind of give you an overview. So, Mr. Adams. All right, some things that we would like you to do. Right, we want you guys to promote a positive learning environment. Again, you guys are an extension of the teaching staff. Okay, and I know that several of us have mentioned this today, but again, you guys are an important resource for us. You fill an important role by being able to fill in for the teacher when they're not here. So again, please understand how valuable you guys are to us. All right? And again, we want to promote that positive learning environment. Proximity does a lot in the classroom, whether it's to make sure the kids are staying focused and on task, or to just simply address minor behavioral issues. Okay, proximity, so just moving around the room, being within a close, I don't want to be up in their face, but just letting the kids know that you are moving around, you're keeping an eye on the classroom. That will do a lot to help with minor classroom management issues. Okay, make sure students have a pass. So in the high school and the middle school, at least, I'm not necessarily sure how it works in elementary school, if they need to use the laboratory or whatever the case is, if they need a pass or not. But at least for middle school and high school, students have passes in their agenda book, fill out their pass. That will allow them to go, if they need to go to the laboratory or they need to go to the main office or whatever the case is. But my recommendation there would be to only allow one student out at a time, so that way you're not losing track of who is in class and who isn't. How's it working in the elementary?
Well, so, go ahead.
Sorry, it's not your section, Miss Chalk. Follow direction.
I felt you like talking to me. I didn't
We planned if you needed a little joke or something, right? No, for the elementary school, typically they don't sign out, they just get teacher permission. But I know for Mary Shoemaker, there are occasions where we do institute classroom sign-outs, and it's just a matter of them signing out on a piece of paper before they leave.
And our building has restrooms in each classroom, so it's not an issue.
Okay. Follow the list of plans left by the teacher, as closely as possible. And if for some reason there's not enough copies of whatever it is, you can always call the main office or send a kid to the main office, and they can run a couple copies for you, whatever the case is. Call the office with any questions that you may have. And again, we did have the numbers up there earlier as far as what the direct numbers extensions were for each of the offices in each of the buildings. Be on time, so again, pay attention to what the sign-in time is for each of the buildings. For all the buildings other than ECLC, it's 7:25. For ECLC, it's 7:30 that you need to be here by to sign in. And again, that helps the secretaries know that you're there. Because again, you're already there to fill in for a teacher, but if you don't show up, then that puts them in a tight spot. So being prompt is appreciated. Follow the district dress code, which is in the substitute handbook, which again you can access by going to the school's website, or sorry, the district website. Top right corner, click on sign in. The username is subs, and the password is Woodstown, and that will bring you to the, you'll be able to access the substitute handbook online to view that. Address students calmly and professionally. Do your best to not escalate the situation. If you see that a student is agitated, not having a good day, maybe suggest that they go to the guidance office to talk to the guidance counselor. If it's high school, middle school, all the buildings have guidance counselors now at this point. So, but again, try not to escalate the situation, because that usually just leads to making matters worse. If you have a student who is being disruptive and you are sending them out of the classroom down to the office, call the office to let them know that the student is coming, and give a brief description as to why. But please remember, if you're using the classroom phone, the other kids are going to hear what you're saying. So again, try to be discreet. You don't want to say, "Oh, Johnny was being a pain in the butt." Like, just be professional about it. Okay? Because again, the kids are going to hear it, and then eventually they're going to tell Johnny when Johnny comes back to class, and that's just going to make matters worse. Okay? Things that we would like you to avoid doing. We would like you guys to avoid sitting and just simply being on your phone or your electronic device, checking your email, checking your Facebook. Again, supervision is key. And if you're too busy looking down at your device, you're not paying attention to what the kids are doing. And again, you're going to be setting that precedent for the kids. They're going to see you on your device, and you're like, well, I'm going to go on my device then. Okay, so again, try to be a good role model as far as that goes, using your electronic devices. Again, as I said, don't allow more than one student out of the class at a time. Again, that way you can keep track of who is and who isn't out on the pass. Obviously, don't use inappropriate language. I know sometimes your tempers can get the better of you, but again, we gotta remember that we are the adults, we are the professionals in the room. Okay? Again, don't discuss personal matters with the students. Don't discuss student matters outside of school, as we've mentioned again. Just trying to reiterate that. Communicate or share information. Don't communicate or share information on social media with the students. And the last thing there, if a student is not being disruptive, maybe they're just not feeling whatever the activity is that the teacher left, or they don't want to do the worksheet that the teacher left. If they're not being disruptive, don't send them out of the room, because then you're kind of giving them that out, and that becomes a pattern for them. If they know that they do a certain thing, they're going to get out of the classroom. So as long as they're not being disruptive to the overall classroom, if they're just sitting there quietly, staring at their paper or doodling, let them. Okay? I mean, that's, at least for me, I'm not sure how Ms. Silverman or Ms. Carpenter feel about that, but you know, if they're not being disruptive, there's no need to send them back.
And note it, I mean, just
Yeah,
make
that's
note of it, make sure
Yes.
that the teacher's aware when they come back the next day that, you know, this child wasn't disruptive, however, they did not do what, you know, the assignment that was given to them or whatever, and then that way the teacher can address it when they get back.
Can I just reiteration here on that point?
It's not your turn either.
This is group participation.
It's my turn now, I'm on your
You know, Mr. Senior mentioned active supervision. That is a key word. Active supervision. You don't want to be sitting in a classroom at the front, reading the newspaper when the rest of your kids are doing God knows what in the classroom. And at the high school, it's going to be different than it is in the middle school, and the middle school is going to be different than elementary. It has to be active, folks. You have to be up, you have to be moving around, you have to keep an eye on the kids. That really is key. Because if you don't do that, you're going to have more problems. And proximity, starting off with proximity, and you know this as an educator, proximity really squashes 3/4 of your problem. If you just walk over and you just stand next to Diane, if she's talking to Christy here, they're going to stop talking. So they're away, they may start again. Okay, he walked away. You stroll back over. And the other thing I was just going to point out to on some of the points that Rich made there, and that is it. Just like you have your own kids. How many of you have kids? Okay. So us parents know a little bit better in terms of dealing with our own kids, because I used to say that my kids wouldn't do things when I was watching everybody else parent. My kids will never do that, and then I had kids, and they did the things I said they would never do. But a good one is, I asked Allison to do something. Allison, please, get up out of your seat, and I want you to have a seat over there. And she gets up out of her seat, but she's mumbling. I can't hear what she says, but you know what? She's moving, she's doing what I asked her to do. Thank you. Instead of saying, what are you mumbling over there, Allison? I can't hear you. Have something else you need to say to me? And we escalate a situation and take it to another level that it wouldn't have gotten to. So again, just be professional, be patient. And the other thing I mentioned with the new staff, and you know this as well as it, every kid has a phone, and every kid is probably recording every single thing that's happening in that classroom at that time. Is it legal for them to use it? Can we take it? It doesn't matter. Just always remember that there's probably someone filming something that if you're sleeping in the classroom, they're filming it. And you know who's going to get it? Me, Allison, Diane, and maybe Mrs. Grossman. So just again, be aware and always be on your A game. That's really key, and you are an important cog in that wheel in terms of keeping things moving for the kids.
I just want to add one more thing too while we're on the topic. Especially with middle school, just be extra vigilant listening to what the kids are saying. You report everything. Don't think that it's too small of a thing or it's just kids being mean to each other. Our substitutes last year were really good about this. They would just leave a note. If it wasn't, if I wasn't there, they'd leave a note to the secretary or leave an email or something to say, just an FYI, I've heard kids talking about this, not sure if it's going to turn into anything or whatever, but the more we know, the more we can prevent. So it's really helpful, even if you have a kid make a self-deprecating statement or something like that, anything, just make us aware and then we can address it with them. Nothing is too small, so do something.
Okay. Just a couple strategies here for handling disruptive students. Kind of going off the example that Dr. Hoops gave. If the student's doing what you're asking them to do, just let that be it. Don't escalate the situation, okay? Maintain proximity, we talked about that, and how that can definitely eliminate a lot of minor issues that you may have. Students not being disruptive, again, because giving them that attention that they're, even though they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, or whatever the case is, but they're not being disruptive, they're still might be getting what they want, which is to get out of the classroom for whatever the reason is. Note the refusal to the teacher, so that the teacher can address it when they return the following day. Make sure you use a calm voice. Okay, tone of voice does a lot. Even if a kid is getting an attitude with you, if you get an attitude back with them, I can't tell you how many times I hear it when a kid comes out of my office, well, they were being rude to me. Okay, so remember, you are the adult, you are the professional in the room. As long as you maintain that, there won't be any issues. If the kid's getting an attitude, so be it. Let them have their temper tantrum, we'll handle it. But don't escalate the situation or make matters worse by either losing your temper or losing your cool or getting an attitude back with them. And on that note, especially with the older kids, be careful with using sarcasm. Some students understand sarcasm, some don't. Okay, so you may be saying something sarcastically, trying to be funny or joke with them, but they're not picking up on it that way. So just be careful about that. Okay?
And our kids definitely don't get it.
Sorry. Well, I told a high school student one time, I guess the honeymoon's over, about him and his best buddy. You can imagine what he thought I was saying about him. And that was in my office. So, I mean,
you gotta be careful.
I don't really use that kind of stuff. It just kind of slid out in my office. And I was like, oh my God, I gotta backtrack this way here.
So again, just being professional at all times and remembering that you are the adult. Okay, they're young, they're children, they're prone to making mistakes, and that's okay. We understand mistakes are going to happen as long as they eventually learn from those mistakes. But don't you make a mistake as well, and then just complicate things. Okay. If the situation warrants the removal of the student for whatever the reason is, make sure that you fill out the referral form after, when you have the time to do so, which, at least for the high school, is located in the main office. Call the office, let them know that the student is on their way down, so that we know what to expect them, because if you don't, the student might take a detour and go somewhere else. We won't even know. Okay, so call the office, say so-and-so's on their way down, they're being disruptive in class, and then I'll fill out the paperwork when I get a chance. That's all you gotta say. Okay? Keep the description brief, like I said, because the other kids are going to be listening into what you're saying over the phone. And then be aware that the class is present. If for some reason, and this has happened from time to time, you ask the student to leave, they refuse, you ask them again, be professional, be polite. Please, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like you to head down to the main office. All right, they still refuse, then call the office, ask for an administrator, myself, whoever the administrator is in the building is, they will come and they will handle the student at that point in time. Okay? Okay, Mr. Adams, you get the next slide for me? Sorry. All right, interactions with students. Okay, again, we want to promote that positive learning environment. Okay, so please adhere to the following. Remember that you are the adult. I know I'm kind of repeating myself a couple times here, but that's just how important it is to remember that you are the adult in the room. Communication with students outside of school is strongly discouraged. I know that we are a small community, and family circles may cross and all that, so just, again, try to keep it professional at all times. Maintain confidentiality. Student issues or situations from school should not be discussed at any time. Whether you're at the supermarket, you bump into a friend, you were substituting that day, hey, guess what happened today at school? We try to steer away from those conversations. If a student comes to you with sensitive information, this kind of goes along with what Ms. Pestilano was saying, please refer them to their guidance counselor, or at least tell us what the student told you, so that way we can be proactive and try to get on top of the situation before it becomes a much bigger situation. Okay? Other important protocols. Again, do not utilize your personal electronic device during instructional time, other than, I know, like we discussed, sometimes you guys might be using it to take attendance, but again, you shouldn't be on your Facebook page or surfing the web on your phone while the kids are supposed to be doing work. Okay, you gotta be actively supervising. Again, no communicating with students outside of school, texting or social media, some examples there. I know sometimes the kids want to take pictures, but again, it strongly discourage you from taking pictures with the students just because you never know how things are going to get read that way, or you end up posting it on your Instagram. Parent finds out, why are you in this picture with my kid, or I don't like this picture with you and my kid. So again, just trying to cover all your bases. Do not contact parents directly. So if you're substituting and certain child's not behaving in class, we don't want you calling the parent to say this is what happened. We will take care of that. Either the administrator or the teacher, when they return, they will make contact with the parents to discuss whatever the situation was. We don't want you guys making that contact directly with the parent. Be aware of inappropriate use of technology by students, as Dr. Hoops mentioned. Unfortunately, every phone now has a camera on it, so you can guarantee that if there's a situation going on in your class, at least one kid is either recording it, taking a picture about it, Snapchatting about it, whatever the case is. So, again, you are the adult in the room, you are the professional. Don't do anything that would warrant a student needing to film and post it on social media. Lesson. All right, so here we're going to go through a couple scenarios, and then we'll open it up for a question and answer session. All right. Scenario number one. All right, this is geared towards elementary, but it could go across the board. All right, you're substituting for Mr. Stenberger. When you arrive at his classroom, there aren't any lesson plans on the teacher's desk, and the class is going to begin in 10 minutes. What do you do? So what I would like you guys to do, just amongst your tables, okay, for each of these scenarios, amongst your tables, just briefly, about a minute or two. Scenario number one. No lesson plans, class is about to start. Ed, what'd your table say?
Call the office.
Call the office. Very good. Call the office, let the secretary know. There's no lesson plans. I know in the high school, at least, we ask our teachers to have lesson plans on file so that we can, at least have something for the kids to do. So we will get something for you to give to the kids. But as long as the kids are quiet, sitting in their seats, as long as you're maintaining supervision, in the meantime, we will get something for you. Okay? All right, scenario number two. You are substituting for Mrs. Lynch's class, and a student is refusing to do the assignment that has been left for them to complete. The student isn't being disruptive, but is just refusing to do the assignment. What do you do? And then the second part of that is, what do you do if the student is being disruptive? So again, take 30 seconds at your table, talk quietly, then we'll bring it back. Mr. President, what'd you guys come up with?
We're not disruptive, just write it down and pass it on to the building administrator, and if they are disruptive, send them to the office.
Very good. And what do you do if you're sending them to the office?
You are notified.
You are notified the office. Very good. Okay, next one. You're substituting for Mr. Bialecki, and as you're getting the students situated and taking attendance, you notice one student who's moving around from table to table. You politely ask the student to find their table and take a seat. The student becomes argumentative and says, "You're just a substitute, I don't have to listen to you."
12 kids.
Okay? So, what do you do? Okay, you take 30 Alright, let's go to this table up front. Yeah. What would you do?
Well, again, I was telling you, it depends on.
Or how about this? Here's the question. What wouldn't you do?
What wouldn't I do is try to escalate the situation.
Okay.
I would just kindly say, sorry that you feel that way, but right now I am the authority in the classroom as a substitute. That's part of my job. And, if they don't calm down, just kindly say, well, you know what, maybe you should go have a conversation with the guidance counselor or the principal. Is that something you want to do? And try just to keep it calm and make sure I stay calm, not escalate the situation.
Exactly. Very good. Again, try not to escalate the situation. Kill them with kindness. Continue to be polite. Remember, you are the adult in the room. Okay? All right, next scenario. Student asks to go to the bathroom, and this is a little more geared towards, I guess, the high school and middle school. All right? After 25 minutes go by, the student still hasn't returned. What do you do? Okay, take 30 seconds. What you guys come up with? What would you do? Notify the office. So-and-so's been out of the classroom for an extended period of time, said they were using the restroom. Okay, at least in the high school, the students need to sign in at the restroom, and we have a teacher that's stationed outside of them, so we can very easily verify with them whether or not the student was there. Sometimes they go use the restroom, and then they decide to go on a little tour of the building, because maybe they're not as familiar with it as they think they are. Yeah, so again, just notify, and then make a note for the teacher as well, because then the teacher the following day can say, you know what, you were out on pass for a very long time yesterday, you're not going to get a pass today, or whatever the case is. So just notify the appropriate people. Okay? Mr. Adams? All right, scenario number 5. You're substituting for Miss Mullison, and as you're walking around monitoring the students as they work, you overhear 2 students talking about a fight that is supposed to happen after school down by the multi-purpose room. What do you do? Back, Drew. What would you guys do? Call the office. Okay? Let me throw a little... Would you call right that second? Would you wait until the end of the period?
Call right that second.
I would recommend that you call right that second if you have the ability to do so, especially if it is closer to the end of the school day. That way we can get on top of it as quickly as we can. Okay? So through a lot of these, you're hearing a recurring theme. Call the office. Call the office. Call the office. That's why it's that much more important to make sure you know what that main office number is for whatever building you're substituting. Yes?
But do you want them to hear you talking about it on the phone to someone?
And that's
Better to have someone come down and maybe
that's
step
a
out?
good point. That's a good point. You don't want to draw attention to the situation or let the student know that you overheard them. You know, try to be discreet about it. You can call the office and just say, hey, I really need to talk to, if you're in high school, hey, I really need to talk to Mr. Senior. Just ask him to stop down to my room when he has a chance. Nothing wrong with that. Or if you want to fire it off in an email real quick, but follow it up with a phone call. Because a lot of times, I'll get an email even from a regular teacher, and they'll say, hey, Mr. Senior, I overheard this, but I'm not always on my email. If I'm not at my computer, I'm not looking at my email. I may not get it until an hour later. So if you send it in an email and then follow it up with a phone call to the office, say, I just sent Mr. Senior an email, please ask him to check it right away. Something like that. Okay? All right. Next scenario, you're substituting for Mr. Adams, and as a student comes into the room, you notice that one in particular smells of marijuana and is acting a bit out of sorts. What do you do? But this goes back to exactly her question right there. This isn't something that you want to broadcast, hey, this kid smells of marijuana, get down here right away. No, you just, again, say, hey, can an administrator please come to the room, I need to discuss something with them. We'll talk out in the hallway about the situation, not drawing attention to it, and then we will handle it from there. Okay? And then lastly, you're substituting for Ms. Vince-Garrett, and you ask the students to put their cell phone away as they enter the room. One student refuses to put their phone away, even after a second request on your part. Okay, and this is one that will probably happen quite frequently, unfortunately, because the kids are attached to their phones. So, what would you do?
Time with the consequence if they don't put it away, maybe have to call the office.
Okay, so I would again kill them with kindness. Ask them a third time, politely. Would you please put that away? We're going to get ready to start our lesson today. They still refuse. At that point, just call the office. You know, again, we will handle it from there. We don't want to put you guys in a position where you get into that power struggle with the student. We're trying to avoid that. Okay? So rely on your resources, rely on the office, make sure you call when you have a question.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we allowed to confiscate it and to the end of the period and not look at it, obviously, not to go into the phone, but are we allowed to do that, or is that not a good thing?
Personally, I would say to avoid doing that because, unfortunately, students will say, when you give it back to them, they'll say, well, my screen wasn't cracked when I gave it to you, now it's cracked, even though it probably was, but then it becomes your word against his word, and that's just something that I would rather avoid. Yeah, that's a can of worms that we're trying not to open. Again, if they're not putting it away, let us intervene, and we will handle it from there.
The bigger issue on that one, I think, is that the kids aren't going to give you their phone anyway. You're going to refuse to do that, you're going to end up in a battle with them, and it's just not worth it at the end of the day. So I would just handle it the way Mr. Senior said on that one. It's a good thought, but
Yeah.
those kids, that phone is an appendage, it's part of their body, and they probably can't give it up. So it's just not worth the battle at the end of the day.
Okay, so that wraps up our scenarios. So any questions that you guys may have, not only for me, for any of the administrators here, building specific, whatever the case is, now's your time to ask. Anything that you may have thought of as, you know,
Whoever
our
asks the best
presentation.
question gets a free donut.
The air conditioning working and all the I got my priorities.
You know what you're doing. I'm asking
Okay.
I'm
That-
assuming that the parking situation is still at the high school, middle school ridiculous.
Yes, the parking at the high school, middle school is still limited, so the staff member who is out, we are telling them to put in their, when they go in ASOP, in the notes section, what their parking space is, so that you can park in their space. However, if they themselves have been displaced because of the construction, which some of them have, they are out student parking. So you can either park in student parking, or you can park at the board office across the street if that is the
Can you
case.
park in the grass next to the middle school thing behind the IPR?
No. Yes, no parking in the grass. So that, again, that just develops a trend, and then everybody thinks it's okay to park in the grass, and then the grass dies, and, you know, all that. So, yes. Any other questions? Yes.
What is the policy about? Is it going to be like per classroom? I mean, I know certain ones do they can come in and put phones in, and then some use it first. Is there calculators?
So, yeah, so, I mean, if it's a math classroom, all the math classrooms have a calculator, so if the student wants to use the excuse, oh, I'm using it for my calculator, they're not. You know, and the kids are savvy enough to have 3 different apps going at the same time and being able to flip back and forth. You know, obviously, the teacher's tolerance is what we go with. So if the teacher is okay with the kids using their phones for certain, at the beginning of class before class starts, or at the end when the lesson is over, you know, we have also been encouraging the teachers to allow the kids to use them when they're looking something up for the class. A lot of teachers have been using Google Classroom in their classroom, so the teacher may have an assignment that the kids need to use their phones for, and they should indicate that in their lesson plans. So if the teacher posted something on Google Classroom that the students have to go on and look at, again, they're going to have to use their phones, but this is where proximity comes into play. So as long as you're up, moving around the room, that's going to discourage them from wanting to be on their social media as opposed to doing the actual assignment. You know, are you going to totally prevent the kids from hopping on, checking their Snapchat real quick, and then going back? No, you're not. But as long as you're moving around the room, the kids are knowing that you're keeping an eye on what they're doing, then for the most part, they will do what they need to do.
Can you encourage teachers to leave the actual assignment even if it's on Google Classroom?
Yeah.
I had a problem last year where they were putting it on Google Classroom and they just said the assignment's on Google Classroom, but I didn't have access, so I have no idea what the kid really is supposed to be doing. They're like, oh, I'm done. It's like, really?
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely do that, so that way you have an idea of what they're supposed to be doing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is there a way to sign up for emergency text messages?
We don't have one right now, but, I mean, we could. I mean, we could probably utilize Remind 101. I know we have one, at least we just started one from the high school staff, so I mean, we could probably set one up.
Yeah, I mean, I have one for my middle school staff too, so we can share that information out. It's just, it's not always, or maybe we just set up a separate,
We could probably
set up a separate one for emergency information.
Yeah, we can do that. It's a good point. Thank you. Anybody else? Darius, look like you got a question developing.
You're doing such a terrific job, and yeah, all of my questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? No? All right, well, again, let me be the first to thank you guys for coming in. And again, donuts,
Help yourselves on the way out. Yep.
I got it, please.